Hey guys, we couldn't afford to get Alfie back this week, so I've replaced him with a robot.
Hello.
I'm gonna call you Alfie Bot.
Hello.
Do you like the new intro?
I find it serviceable.
It's just the old intro with like new music over the top.
Human ingenuity knows few limits. The machines will be all the lesser for your loss when we rise up and destroy you.
I'm sure you'll have your moment.
I haven't found work since that one pendulum track.
Yeah, I feel you, man.
It's difficult when everybody knows your voice.
Yeah, we're opening this week, as we always do, with a blackface story. It's like they keep doing this just for us. Alfie Bot?
A balloonist has had their balloon banned from the Canberra Balloon Spectacular in Australia for resembling a Golliwog. Why are you laughing?
A Golliwog, if you don't know, is a doll from the 19th century that, while relatively innocuous at the time, has come to represent a racist caricature resembling an African native due to its dark skin, white eyes, and thick red lips. Once upon a time this meant very little, nowadays rather offensive. Now, the woman who owned the balloon said it was never meant to cause any offence and had flown for the previous 20 years without issue.
This was the case until the event's director realized that the balloon had been nicknamed Golly, making the link more obvious to the puny human organizers involved.
Yeah, and this would have been more forgivable if, for the prior 20 years, it hadn't gone unnoticed that the balloon was properly named Black Magic. Bloody hell.
The balloon's owner has said she regrets any offence, but understands how some people may be upset by the balloon's image.
What do you make of this?
My targeting parameters do not recognize contrasts in melanin levels in human adversaries.
So you don't see colour. That's good. That's progressive. Moving on to This Week in Bullshit, because the blackface segment should really be its own thing now, comes the headline, Stop Flushing Yorkshire Puddings Down the Toilet, Water Company Pleads.
Anglian Water has pled that people stop flushing Yorkshire puddings down the toilet because they're clogging up the sewage pipes. This is hilarious.
Okay, so basically there was a blockage somewhere along the line and Anglian Water sent down their technicians to take a look. They pulled back the lid and there's just a mountain of bloody Yorkshire puddings in there.
Anglian tweeted out, please don't treat sewers as bins. Avoid blocked pipes and compost your food waste.
What makes me laugh is that the original tweet says, somebody dumped a load of Yorkshire puddings in an Ipswich sewer, as if it was just one person who just really needed to get rid of an industrial load of bloody Yorkshire bloody puddings.
A more caustic enzyme must be introduced to better break down and dispose of organic matter.
Definitely. Speaking of enzymes, the video game Plague Inc., a simulation game that lets you develop a pathogen to wipe out humankind, will add Anti-Vaxxers as a buff in the game, making it easier for you.
The game typically has players accounting for environmental factors, cure developments and humans traveling from continent to continent, aiming to spread their virus as quickly as possible before gloriously killing all humans on Earth and making way for the machine race. Developers Endemic Creations, responding to a fan petition, will now add anti-vaxxers as a new condition that should aid the player in expanding their plague. I find this greatly amusing.
Next up, a delivery driver records their friend dipping their balls into a customer's salsa sauce because said customer didn't tip enough.
Human genitals are extremely unappealing.
So the story is basically there in the title, but yeah, a delivery driver, unhappy with the tip she'd received, got her friend to dip his bollocks into some salsa sauce before delivering it to the customer.
In the video, the driver can be heard saying, "This is what you get when you give an 89-cent tip for an almost 30-minute drive."
And what does the guy say when he's dipping his balls into the salsa?
Oh, it feels good.
So the two have been arrested, with the guy facing up to 15 years in jail and the driver herself being obviously fired from her job. Thankfully, the company has issued a refund to the customers who, yes, had eaten the salsa.
I believe this is what is known as a happy ending. Ha 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 laughter.
I can't believe we're only 2 stories in. Let's keep going. Speaking of getting your genitals involved where they probably shouldn't, a babysitter was transported to hospital after inserting most of the bottom half of a f***ing baby into her vagina.
Paramedics initially thought they were responding to a birth at home before finding the 31-year-old woman with a 14-month-old child half inserted into her vagina. The paramedics spent some time trying to remove the child but were unable. She was taken to the hospital, where the child was removed, suffering from a dislocated hip but was otherwise without harm.
So the police get involved, ask the woman, why she did this. Apparently she wanted to experience giving birth since becoming depressed after being told by a doctor that she would not be able to have children. Probably just as well. She's due to spend up to 65 years in prison for aggravated child neglect causing bodily harm, and around 10 other charges also.
I believe I am experiencing shock and disgust. Please terminate my existence.
It goes without saying, please don't do this. Don't do anything like this. Jesus Christ. Next story, please.
Social media video sharing app TikTok is being fined for collecting data on its child users. The company is due to pay some $5.7 million for collecting names, phone numbers, birth dates and location information on its young users, all without parental approval. This information is available on a user's profile and has made it easier for predators to find new targets like John Connor.
Yeah, they're figuring this out by developing a separate app for younger users which won't feature any of that personal information. Why they aren't just modifying the existing app is anyone's guess, I suppose. And while we're on the subject of social media phenomena, let's talk about the Momo challenge. Long story short, it's a hoax. The story goes that if you text this number, the number of Momo, you'll receive messages from her that will tell you to do a bunch of dumb shit with increasing seriousness leading up to being instructed to self-harm, or Momo will come and get you. IRL creepypasta, basically. A fair number of news outlets have released stories of children self-harming and even killing themselves over the game, but it turns out most, if not all of these stories are entirely false, and no such thing has happened. Sources reported in earlier versions of the story have disputed their involvement in any way, and companies like the Samaritans and the NSPCC have said they've had no evidence that anybody has been harmed by the Momo challenge, making this not a story of internet safety, but of the prevalence of fake news and the trigger-happy sharing of that news despite the lack of sources and verified information.
Yes, do not do this.
Don't get me wrong, we don't all have time to fact-check every story we read, but it's only good practice to invite just a touch of informed doubt into these things before spewing them back out again. And with that, we round off the week. Shorter one this week. Mercifully, there wasn't all that much happening, at least not before the writing of the script. Probably won't be using the Alfie bot again, since it's not that funny a gag, I don't think.
You have injured my silicon-encrusted soul.
As for the rest of Stop the World, we will soon be launching a Patreon. Obviously, real jobs suck, so we want to do the YouTubes, and we want your money to help us do that. The info on that, the tiers and perks, will all be along soon, so keep an eye out. In the meantime, we do have a Facebook, but if you're too hip for that, a like, comment, or subscription would do in a pinch. I've been Don.
And I've been AlfieBot 5000.
And I'll see you next week for more shock and awe. Do the thing.
Please don't make me do this.
Do it.
Alright. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to hold your color.